Muhammad Ali saw the waitress being humiliated. 10 seconds later, the entire restaurant went silent. The glass shattered against the hardwood floor, sending fragments in every direction. The young waitress, Emma, froze in place as hot coffee splashed across the customer's expensive leather shoes. The businessman's face contorted with rage as he stood up abruptly, towering over her. Emma's hands trembled as she knelt down, frantically trying to clean up the mess with a small cloth napkin, her eyes welling with tears. The restaurant's ambient chatter diminished as patrons turned to witness the unfolding scene. Nobody intervened. Nobody except the tall, distinguished man seated in the corner booth who had been quietly observing the entire incident. Muhammad Ali had chosen this small diner in Louisville, Kentucky, for its relative anonymity. Despite his worldwide fame, he occasionally sought places where he could enjoy a meal without drawing attention. Tonight was supposed to be one of those quiet evenings. He'd been battling the increasing symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and his movements had become more deliberate, his once lightning-fast reflexes now slowed. But what remained unchanged was his sense of justice and dignity, the same qualities that had made him refuse the Vietnam War draft decades earlier. "You stupid girl, do you have any idea how much these shoes cost?" The businessman bellowed, his voice echoing through the now silent restaurant. "More than you make in a month." Emma's supervisor appeared from the kitchen, her face a mask of practiced apology as she approached the irate customer. "Sir, I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience. Your meal is on the house, of course, and we'll cover any cleaning expenses for your shoes." The businessman scoffed. "That's the bare minimum. I want her fired. Right now, in front of everyone." Emma's face drained of color. She was a single mother working double shifts to support her 7-year-old son and pay for community college classes. The murmurs around the restaurant grew, but still no one stood up for her, no one except Muhammad Ali, who slowly rose from his seat. His presence seemed to fill the room as he deliberately made his way toward the commotion, his gait steady despite his condition. The restaurant fell completely silent as patrons recognized the iconic figure moving through the space. The businessman was still mid-tirade when he noticed the sudden hush. He turned, his angry expression faltering as he found himself face to face with one of the most recognized men in the world. "The measure of a man is not how he treats his equals, but how he treats those who serve him," Ali said, his voice soft but clear, carrying across the silent restaurant. The slight tremor in his hands did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. Muhammad Ali placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder, helping her to her feet, with the same hands that had once shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston. The restaurant remained completely silent, every eye fixed on the former heavyweight champion of the world. The businessman's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and finally, embarrassment. Sometimes we forget that the people serving us are humans, with dreams just as important as our own, Ali continued, his voice carrying the same measured cadence that had made his poems and proclamations legendary. Though his speech had slowed over the years, due to his condition, his words still carried immense weight. "This young lady deserves your respect, not your contempt." Emma stood transfixed, barely breathing as she realized who had come to her defense. Growing up in Kentucky, everyone knew the story of the local boy who became the greatest boxer in history, who stood by his principles even when it cost him his title, who transformed from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali and became a voice for justice beyond the boxing ring. The businessman straightened his tie nervously. "Mr. Ali, I had no intention of—" he stammered, suddenly aware of the dozens of disapproving eyes on him. "Intentions mean little. Actions reveal character," Ali replied, the hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I believe you owe this young lady an apology." The restaurant remained suspended in silence. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to witness the exchange. The businessman looked around at the crowd of onlookers, then back to Ali's unwavering gaze. Something in the former champion's expression, perhaps the same determination that had sustained him through the rumble in the jungle and the thriller in Manila, made it clear that he wouldn't back down. I apologize for my behavior, the businessman finally said, turning to Emma. It was just a coffee spill. I overreacted. Ali nodded approvingly, but remained standing protectively near Emma, who was still processing what was happening. For years afterward, she would describe this moment as the one that changed her understanding of what true strength looked like. It wasn't in the businessman's bluster or wealth, but in the dignified intervention of a man who, despite his physical limitations, still possessed the courage to stand up for what was right. The restaurant manager approached, his expression a mixture of awe and gratitude. "Mr. Ali, it's an honor to have you in our establishment. And please, allow me to offer you and your party a complimentary meal." Ali shook his head gently. "I appreciate your kindness, but I didn't intervene for a free meal. I'd prefer if you would ensure Emma here is treated with the respect she deserves." He turned to the still-shaken waitress. "What's your son's name?" Emma's eyes widened in surprise. "Jackson. He's 7. How did you know I have a son?" Ali smiled. "I noticed the child's drawing in your apron pocket. Only a mother would carry such a treasure while she works." Chapter 2. An unexpected connection. The restaurant gradually returned to its normal buzz of conversation, though many patrons continued stealing glances at Ali's table, where he now sat with Emma during her hastily granted break. The businessman had settled his bill and left, leaving a surprisingly generous tip that the manager insisted go directly to Emma. But more valuable than the money was the conversation unfolding at the corner booth. "My father took me to see you fight when I was just a little girl," Emma confided, her earlier nervousness giving way to wonder at finding herself sitting across from a legend. "It was in 1978, I think. He saved for months for those tickets." Ali's eyes crinkled with warmth. "The Spinks rematch. I reclaimed my title that night." "Yes," Emma's face lit up. "Dad always said that watching you come back taught him more about perseverance than anything else in his life." Ali nodded thoughtfully. His fingers, once capable of lightning-fast combinations that bewildered opponents, now moved with deliberate care as he stirred his tea. The tremors were more pronounced when he was tired, as he was tonight, but he'd long ago made peace with his condition. What Parkinson's had taken from his body, it could never take from his spirit. "Your father sounds like a wise man. Is he still in Louisville?" Emma's smile faltered slightly. "He passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. He fought it like a champion, though, just like you taught him." Ali reached across the table and placed his hand over hers in a gesture of comfort. This was the same man who had once proclaimed his beauty and boasted of his speed and power, now showing the gentle compassion that had always existed alongside his fierce competitive spirit. "Champions don't always win, but they always fight with dignity. I'm sure your father left that legacy with you and your son." Emma nodded, blinking back tears. "Jackson wants to be a doctor because of that experience. Even at 7, he's determined. He says he wants to help people fight back against what took his grandfather." Ali's expression brightened. "Healing is a noble path, more noble than fighting ever was." He paused, seeming to consider something. "Does Jackson have books about medicine?" "We visit the library every week," Emma replied. "He checks out anything with doctor or medicine in the title, even if it's too advanced for him. I want to encourage him, but on my salary." She trailed off, embarrassed to be discussing financial limitations with someone of Ali's stature. Ali didn't seem to notice her discomfort, or perhaps he chose to ease it by continuing naturally. The mind of a child is fertile ground. With the right nurturing, there's no telling what might grow. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small notebook and pen, writing with careful concentration despite his trembling hands. This is the address of my foundation office. Send a letter telling them about Jackson's dream. Tell them Muhammad instructed them to establish a small educational fund for the young doctor. Emma stared at the paper in disbelief. Mr. Ali, I can't accept. This is too generous. It's not charity, Ali corrected gently. It's investment. The world needs healers more than it needs fighters. I'm just planting seeds for a garden I might not live to see bloom. 2 hours had passed, and the restaurant was now nearly empty. Ali's security detail, who had been waiting discreetly outside, occasionally checked on him through the window but didn't interrupt. They had witnessed similar scenes countless times throughout the years, their boss extending kindness to strangers, often with life-changing consequences. The restaurant owner, a stocky man named Robert, who had been called in when staff recognized Ali's presence, sat with them now, sharing stories of growing up in Louisville during the civil rights era. For Robert, Ali had been more than a boxing champion. He had been a symbol of possibility, proof that a black man from their city could reshape the world through talent and conviction. I remember when you came back to the city after winning gold in Rome, Robert said. You couldn't even get served at certain restaurants despite being an Olympic champion. It made an impression on me as a young man. Ali nodded, remembering those bitter days when America celebrated his victory but still denied him basic dignity. The medal didn't change who I was in their eyes. That's why I had to change myself from within, become the man I was meant to be, not who they expected me to be. Emma listened intently, gaining a deeper understanding of the man behind the famous declarations and historic bouts. The Ali sitting before her was not just the fighter who had floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee, but a man who had navigated tremendous adversity, both in and out of the ring, and emerged with his humanity not just intact, but enriched. As the evening drew to a close, Ali's bodyguard finally approached the table, gently reminding him of his schedule for the following day. The restaurant staff gathered to say goodbye, each receiving a moment of the champion's attention. When he reached Emma, Ali took both her hands in his. Remember what I told you. Dignity isn't something that can be taken from you. It can only be surrendered. Never surrender yours, no matter how powerful the opponent seems. Emma nodded, fighting back tears. I'll tell Jackson I met a real champion today, not because of your titles, but because of this moment. Ellie smiled. Tell him I expect great things from Dr. Jackson. The world awaits his healing hands. As Ali prepared to leave, Robert approached with a small package. Mr. Ali, we have a tradition of giving special guests a piece of our history. This diner has been in my family for 3 generations. He handed Ali a vintage photograph showing the restaurant in the 1950s. Your father painted this building once. Did you know that? My grandfather often spoke of how meticulously he worked. Ali studied the photograph with evident emotion, tracing the outline of the building with his finger. My father took pride in his work as a sign painter. He taught me that whatever you do, do it with excellence, whether anyone is watching or not. What none of them realized as they said their goodbyes was that a college student in the corner had captured portions of the evening on his phone. By morning, the story of Muhammad Ali defending a waitress and connecting with regular people at a small Louisville diner would spread across social media, becoming yet another chapter in the living legacy of the man who had transcended his sport to become a global humanitarian. 6 months later, Emma stood nervously outside the community college administration building, holding Jackson's hand. The boy fidgeted in his small suit, adjusting the bow tie his mother had carefully fixed that morning. "Mummy, do I look like a doctor yet?" he asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. Emma smiled, kneeling to his level. "Not quite yet, but today is the first step on that long journey." Inside, they were greeted by the college president and representatives from the Muhammad Ali Center. What had begun as a small educational fund had evolved into something more substantial, a dedicated scholarship program for underprivileged children interested in medical careers. Jackson was to be recognized as the inspiration for the initiative, though Emma had insisted that the program be named after Ali rather than her son. The ceremony was modest but meaningful. Jackson stood proudly next to a poster he had created, showing his future plans to become an oncologist. Local media covered the event, and Emma found herself sharing the story of that fateful night in the diner, though she was careful to focus on Ali's kindness rather than the businessman's cruelty. "Muhammad Ali taught me that a single moment of courage can create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see," she told the small gathering. "He didn't just defend me that night, he showed my son what true strength looks like." After the ceremony, as attendees mingled over refreshments, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from a number she didn't recognize. It contained a photo of Ali watching the live stream of the event from his home, giving a thumbs up alongside a simple message. "Tell the young doctor his journey begins well. Champions aren't born. They're made through small, daily choices. Muhammad." Emma showed the message to Jackson, who stared at the phone in awe. "He remembered me, Mom. The greatest remembered me." Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. 6 months ago, she had been a struggling single mother whose greatest concern was making rent while saving for her son's future. Now, she had not only completed her associate's degree, but had been offered a position as an administrative assistant at the very hospital where she hoped Jackson would someday practice medicine. The restaurant incident had changed more than just her financial situation. It had restored her faith in humanity and shown her son a model of manhood worth emulating, not defined by physical prowess or wealth, but by the courage to stand up for others and the wisdom to invest in the future. In a world increasingly driven by self-interest, Ali had demonstrated that true greatness lies in lifting others when they fall. As Emma tucked Jackson into bed that night, he asked the question he had repeated almost daily since meeting his hero. "Mom, do you think I could be like Muhammad Ali someday?" Emma smoothed his hair back from his forehead, considering her answer carefully. "Ali became great, not just because of his talent, but because he stood for something beyond himself. If you remember to use your gifts to help others, then yes, you can be like him in the ways that matter most." Jackson nodded seriously, processing this answer with the intensity only a child can bring to life's big questions. "I'm going to help people fight back against the things that hurt them, not with my fists, but with medicine." "That's a different kind of championship," Emma agreed, "and I think Muhammad Ali would say it's the more important kind." After Jackson fell asleep, Emma sat at their small kitchen table, writing a thank you letter to Ali. She wanted to tell him how his intervention had created a cascade of positive changes in their lives, how his example continued to shape her son's character, and how the ripples from that one moment of courage were still spreading outward in ways neither of them could have predicted. As she wrote, Emma reflected on something Ali had said that night in the diner. "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." Through his simple act of standing up for a stranger, he had demonstrated this principle more eloquently than any speech could convey. In doing so, he had not only changed her life, but had given her son a template for true greatness, one measured not in titles or wealth, but in the lives touched and the dignity affirmed. The story of that night would be told and retold, becoming part of the rich tapestry of memories that constituted Ali's legacy beyond the boxing ring. For while his athletic achievements had made him famous, it was moments like these, quiet acts of kindness and courage when no cameras were expected to be rolling, that had made him beloved. They revealed the heart of a champion whose greatest victories were not counted in knockouts, but in the moments when he had used his stature to elevate others, ensuring that his impact would endure long after his final bow in the public arena.